Hello, facilitators, and welcome to another video. My name is Marci Melzer, and I'm an intuitive speech language pathologist and natural language facilitation coach and consultant. And today is Q&A day. So it is Q&A time on my channel. I'm talking about speech progress, confusing behaviors, disconnected resistant kids, professional certification, whatever you want. And while we're waiting for some folks to join me, I do have a couple questions that have come in, but I want to remind you that if you haven't already, you should go sign up for my free Get Started guide right on my website, wavesofcommunication.com. You can access that guide and it will help you get started. So let's see, before we get into those questions, I just want to remind you that this is Q&A. So you are welcome to leave a comment right now. If you're watching live, those of you on the replay, you're gonna see how I work. In my natural community that I've got going on, the way that I find it best is to put out a lot of education for parents to absorb and let you try it, give you strategies to get you going, give you recommendations about what's going on for your child's therapies or the intervention that you're giving. I give you lots of ideas in more than 800 videos here on YouTube and Facebook. And the deal is that when you go and try those things, you're going to experience different situations. Some of it's going to work, some of it's not. You're going to have judgment. You're going to have feedback from other people. You're going to be doing self-analysis. And as a result of that, you probably have questions. And so that's how I work with people. I give information, let you learn the best you can, and then have you join me. So let's get into it. We're going to start with questions that I got already ahead, and I'll be looking for comments to come in on this video. So Santosh, who's a YouTube member for many months, one of my longest members on YouTube, says, I am that one parent whose kid is getting judged by the school for his lack of speech, and we get judged for not providing professional speech therapy to our kid. And the schools are forcing us to keep a shadow teacher for my almost 7-year-old late talker who does not have any behaviors or tantrums. So this is a situation, very common situation. So Santosh, thank you for posting this question. There's a little bit more in the next slide. The issue that Santosh has with this situation is that, her son is quiet, a well-disciplined child. I don't want a shadow teacher for him, as I don't want him to lose his independence in her presence. So this is her concern about sending him to school with assistance. And I have myself enrolled for the professional certification and hope that it speeds up his recovering. So let's get into this concept of shadow teachers, want them, don't want them, why do they happen? Just briefly, because we have talked about this before, what happens in schools is they can't handle late talkers. They could handle one or two, but there are 6 or 8 showing up in a classroom of 20 to be admitted, parents who have late talkers. These late talkers may not have a lot of behaviors, but they don't look like the other kids, right? There is a clear distinction between late talkers and children that naturally use speech to communicate. And if your child isn't there yet, where speech, spoken language, words without behaviors are their primary communication. Unless that happens, your child's going to be judged as in the other camp, the late talking camp, the kids that are not. There are the kids that are, and they get in with no problem. They get assigned a desk, they get assigned assignments, they have expectations of performance. And your child is not performing to those expectations. And it doesn't matter what you think those expectations are, should be, whatever. It is the teacher and her or his supportive administration, the principal, the headmaster, the one who dictates how many kids go into classes, which kids go into which classes, and a school will work with a teacher. They may or may not. The teacher may just get their bag of, here's my list of kids that I'm going to get this year. There isn't much discussion about who goes with which teacher or who goes wherever, because schools operate like schools. They have many, many kids to get in their system and get in their school and get in their whatever. And if your child is not performing like the others, like I said, there are the performers and then there are the non-performers. And if your child has been rubber stamped as one of those that is not performing in the school will make, there's a negotiation that begins, right? You want your child to attend. The school is in the business of accepting children for education, but yours doesn't qualify, because that's what they do in order to protect their teachers from and the other kids. See, it doesn't work for a classroom to be full of many children who have extra needs and also many children who do not have extra needs. That's a challenge for a teacher. Teachers who have a classroom full of children need to be able to give a direction and have the entire class, or at least the vast majority, minus one or two at the most, follow that direction, go on command, and perform to expectation. So they have to listen, they have to process, they have to follow rules, they have to do all of that stuff. And this is why school readiness is important before you send your child to that situation. Because if you do, like Santosh did, they're going to say your child fits in X category or Y category, whatever they label it. They can label your kid with a disorder like autism spectrum and say that it's because of that they go into this category. It's the label that gets them in the category, or the category that gets the label, right? Because it's all categories, because they have many children and they have to match the child with the teaching. Now, if you insist, I want my child here, he needs to be here, he can be here, and the school disagrees with you, that's where this kind of situation happens. You don't agree with the school's assessment of your child, the school doesn't agree with your assessment of the child, and remember, they're in charge. This is their business that you want to take advantage of, that you want to send your child to. And it's your choice right now. Now, Santosh is going to do the certification program so that she can work to get her child caught up this year. However, remember, part of the reason that the schools exist and you want your kid to go there and be with those other children is the exposure to the social experience, right? Now, you might want your child to go because you think that your child needs to have a group classroom collaborative learning experience to help that your child academically rise up to where they need to be, or where you want them to be. Because remember, now the school's expectation of your child and your expectation of your child are different. And you insist on sending them to that business. You are at the mercy of the business. I'm sorry. I hope that you can get your kids to that point. But remember, if you have delivered them, this is true for everybody. If you've delivered your child to school and they're not ready, they've already been categorized. They've been given the label. They've been given the place. People talk about how they're going to lose the label. They're going to get their child reassessed to go through all that. It will be that process. If you are in a systemic school, you're going to have to prove that your child is capable and performing both of those things in order for admission. And if you insist on admission without those things independently performed by your child on command in the assessment, whatever assessment they throw at them, because remember, there are children who do and can and are performing, and they will accept those children ahead of yours because they've got a bunch of kids in the door. Okay. Now, they may be trying to fill their school. They may be a private school that's desperate to have kids, and they're working with you and giving you a story about how they will help and they can accommodate your child and they will help. This happens often with preschool programs where parents are like, I really want to get my kiddo in here. Won't you accept them? Because at home, they're showing a lot different behaviors, but they are not school ready. And you're hoping that the school is going to do that job. And it's not. So remember, they're not able to help your child get caught up. And I know the certification program, if you do it yourself, it's not going to give your child the experience of having another adult, respected adult that they have to learn from and follow the rules and do all of that. So if you do use the certification program yourself to step by step analyze and get your child ready for school readiness, which is what that program does. But that program is designed to work as a team with other people. So you're going to have to find other parents to work with, or you're going to have to find a nanny to work with, or someone like that, so that your child has the group learning experience that you're missing at that school. And remember, a lot of these kids haven't had it because they've been stuck in front of videos. They haven't been in collaborative group, even family experiences due to pandemic lockdowns. It was distance and separation was normalized for these kids. They are young. They don't know any better. They don't know the value of collaborative group learning experiences. And if you have no one around you, you can hire a nanny or aide or someone like that who is great at working with children and be a team member with that person, because it's going to be challenging to do this all on your own and get your child ready to go to school to perform and do that without those experiences in your world. So, I'm guiding parents to, if you are doing this at home and you're working with a certified facilitator, you need to, before you deliver your child to a structured school experience, you have to have other group structured learning things too, like the library program, story times, the park district we have here in the United States. If there are local, in fact, the aquarium that I volunteer at has education programs for homeschool families, right? Which is what you are right now. You've removed your child from the stretcher. It's like the pressure and stress, which is a combination word, right? To get your child and shove them into this program that they're not ready for because it's the only program around, or the program you want, or the program you were told was best, or whatever. All these programs are not the same as they ever were. All of these teachers are having to adapt to allow more of these late talkers in their classroom. But you don't want to be the one or two that's annoying the teacher. You want your kid to be the one that's performing and showing up, or you're going to have to find alternative education to help your child succeed academically. That's going to be up to you, because remember, it is not the school's job to get your child caught up. But their expectations are their expectations, and they will hold to them. They will not change their expectations for your unique child. There are too many unique childs right now. If it was you were the 1 in 20, you might be able to negotiate these things. But now it's like, nope, you're one of those. Get a shadow teacher. I can't deal with your kid. And that's what's happening. Okay, that's what's happening to everybody. So, all right. I see some more questions coming in. So hang on, because I've got a couple more that are coming through. And I just need to do a little shout out to Manapri. Thank you, Manapri, for joining my YouTube membership. For those of you who are just considering language facilitation, this is a great way to get your feet wet because you can access all the videos. All right, let's get into a few more questions. So Santosh, I know you don't want a shadow teacher, but if you want school, and then you better make a relationship with the shadow teacher for yourself or your home, or you have to be the shadow teacher, because if you don't want him to lose his independence, you're going to have to facilitate that independence at home and get him ready before he goes there. Because if he can't handle what they're asking him to do without assistance, that shadow teacher will step in and do it. That's their role. Okay. And if you are considering, just like Santosh, this idea of working as a team with a professional, that's where you go. All right. So Tiffany, on YouTube. She has a few questions. She sort of crammed them all in on one, but we can address. So the last couple of years, my now 5-year-old has been mixing names and laughing about it. For example, when watching Bluey, she mixes Bluey and Bingo. And Tiffany's also looking for resources to improve social skills in play settings. And because her daughter will say hello, but after that, the conversation becomes less functional. All right. So what we're talking about here, let's look again, is mixing up the names and then laughing about it. So what probably happens in this case is every time, see, this is what happens when kids do things, I'm going to say wrong, but the actual word is inaccurate, right? Remember, these late talkers are using what they know, and they're Gestalt processors and Gestalt communicators, which means that they are not always saying exactly, like it's not literally what they are thinking. It is related, or it is somehow, yeah, related. It's a bit of it, or it is more than it. So it can be less or more. So, for example, a child who's a Gestalt processor could be saying these kinds of things over and over and over again. So she calls Bluey, the other name, oh, that's Bluey, and it's not Bluey. And every time your child does that, you jump in and correct them. And you say, that's not Bluey, that's the other one, that's it. And there is some interaction, some game. See, kids will do this with escaping too. I had another family where the kid would run down the driveway because he knew that activity would always get his parents' attention and attraction. And kids will do this with these repeated behaviors for the purpose of engagement with you, to play the game, the you said it wrong game, and here's the right game. And the reason your child is laughing is because you're playing the game. You took the bait. They booby trapped you into saying, connect with me. Listen to what I'm saying. Is it correct? Give me a better thing to say. So your late talker is baiting and prompting you into this say the wrong name game to get you to play along, to connect and engage and whatever. So here's my recommendation. You got to take the game to the next level. You got to play you got to catch the game out and evolve it into something that so give your child credit for being smart instead of being wrong. So you're like, I see you doing it again. You're testing to see if I really know which one is Bluey and which one was whatever. You're testing me because I know that you know which one is Bluey and which one is this one. And when you say something like that, wait till you see the eye contact. Your child will look straight at you and go, you figured me out. I'm too smart. See, when your child does stuff like that and then laughs about it, they make a mistake on purpose and laugh about it. That means, I know this. I need you to tell me that you know that I know this. I know you know that I know this thing, but I'm going to get it wrong because I want to hear you tell me I'm smart. I want you to hear me and talk more and tell me more. So that's what you're going to say. You're just making those mistakes because you want me to talk about Bluey and whatever Bluey's doing. You make up a story that relates to the child. Bluey's doing, the laundry, or Bluey's walking on the sidewalk. I'm just going to do something like, I don't even know it because I don't watch Bluey. Bluey's walking on the sidewalk with his little brother holding hands. And that's what you do with your baby dolls. You are just like Bluey and you want me to see that. Do you even see the gestures that you want me to see that you are talking about Bluey, and you want me to say Bluey the right way because it's Bluey's name, and you get silly about it and whatever. And now the game has changed into You took the bait in a good way, because remember, the reason that kids draw you back into these games over and over again, because they like it. They giggle. They like it when you catch them out on their stuff, and they want you to catch them out on their stuff because that's the game, you see. So also then let's look back again here. She's talking about resources to improve social skills in play settings. That means that this little girl is very prompt dependent, right? Because you may have been doing a lot of prompted stuff in the past. Maybe you still are. Are you asking your child to say things on command that you know they want? Like they point to the candy and you say, "Do you want candy?" Right? That's second guessing. That's a prompt. Whenever you ask the questions that you already know the answers to, your kids know, oh, now they're not going to give it to me unless I perform, right? It's just like those schools. I just talked about this. Like, you're running the program at your house and you have expectations for performance and you have expectations for listening. And when your child doesn't do those expectations, you're going to prompt them, or you're going to remind them, or you're going to get them to do it again, because they don't get the thing unless they say something. That somehow came to be your rule. And the child understood the rule. So now they're looking, all right, what do I have to do to perform? This is why kids say the wrong thing. They might, point and grab and point and grab, and you could start prompting, oh, you want the cookie, say cookie. And finally they're like, oh, they just want me to say cookie, cookie. So now all of a sudden they walk around saying cookie, 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 cookie. And now you're like, no, but that's not enough. I want cookie. See, that's what happens with all these prompted things. You get gestalt phrases and funny games that are made up in the child's mind because they're not hearing more models. It's only the same stuff over and over and over again. And the same strategy that's going to get more conversation and accurate stuff out of this little girl is the same strategy to use for your storytelling, and not just storytelling. I'm going to tell you about that in a minute, but storytelling is a strategy, but pretend play. So when you're playing with your Barbies, it's not just about Barbie is walking, Barbie is sitting, Barbie is eating, Barbie is doing. Why is Barbie doing all those things? Like if you saw that Barbie movie or even the ads for it, you see that there are reasons behind everything. She likes it the way she likes it. Why does she like it that way? Why doesn't she like it this way? What can Barbie do? What can Barbie not do? Can she make her feet go flat? Can she make her feet go straight? Which clothes are hard to put on? Which things are funny or silly, or that make her look great or ugly or goth or whatever you want her to look like? Why do you make these choices in the things that you have? See, when your child shows up to a play date and all she can say is hello, that means that she's got a whole vocabulary full of what's. And she doesn't know any about the whys and the wheres and the hows about all those things. So she knows that she wants to play and she wants to go, and she wants to go up on the slide and down on the slide. And she might have labels for some of these things, but she doesn't have the social play. So you need to play with your Barbies or stuffed animals or little peoples, my favorite, because there's so many and so many kinds, and they do things, but they don't just go in the bus and out of the bus and sit and stand and eat and poop and do all that stuff. There's reasons for all those things. And your little one right now needs you to be showing all those whys and hows. And once she has the language, if she's showing up to say hi to friends, she's showing up as an observer, right? Because she wants to learn from those kids and see how they play and do whatever. And they're going to do whatever. But if you're prompting her to go and do and whatever, she might need a minute to watch them and see them. And you could be an observer with her to say, ooh, look at what they're doing and why. And look at what he's doing and why. And look at what she's doing and why. Because there are whys and whys and whys. All the reasons. He's angry, he's sad because he took his toy, or he's angry because he took his toy. Remember, kids feel different ways about different things. I don't care. He took his toy and he didn't even care. I would care if somebody took my toy, but he doesn't care because he's building a sandcastle and he doesn't care. He doesn't even need it. Right. And then you see another kid who's hoarding all the toys and won't let anybody have any toys. Why is he doing that? Right. When you see things with your child socially, this is how you can get them to start using the language that goes with these experiences. So the way you teach all of this stuff is functionally, F-U-N, capital F-U-N, functionally, through the things that you do and the social reasons that you do them, the whys and the hows, because otherwise we're just getting it through and doing it. It's like factory work. We're doing the thing, do it, do it, do it, do it. And even factory workers have a reason to go there. And then when they're done doing the same old, they better have some kind of reward or a break or something like that. And if that's your child's life, that's why there's no progress, right? So the two things that I recommend for you to watch out for, Tiffany, are the issues of, number one, not giving her enough fun language to learn from and not acknowledging when she's testing you and prompting you and calling her out on it, and then responding to the prompt by giving her more language. And then the resources to improve social settings are that pretend play stuff and examples where you are looking at other people socially and describing that with her. Okay. Now, remember, all you folks, independent learning options are available on wavesofcommunication.com. There is the workshop, there is the workbook, there's all these videos on YouTube. Okay, so here's the next question from Krishna Swati on YouTube. I just wanted to post this because she's done an amazing job. She said she's tried the felt storybook that I showed in this video. The video I'm getting ready to show you the picture of, it's the storytelling video I was just mentioning. So I used that video to talk about that that issue, like with all of that stuff going on, and how to use that book, how to use that felt book to tell stories, among other reasons to tell stories. And already, just after playing for a little bit with that thing, this mama could hear a lot more words and see a lot of imagination in his play. Thank you, Marci. Your tips always work wonders. So, all right. And I see Tiffany's been watching. Thank you, Tiffany. So she says, thank you, Dad and I purchased the book and we're getting through it, reversing some of the things we were taught to do through prior speech therapy. Okay, so I'm really glad that you mentioned this because, I don't want anybody to feel like you've done the wrong thing. You've never done the wrong thing. You've taken advice from people and your child has learned through the experience. Now, your little one has learned how to turn the tables literally on these strategies. This is why they don't work well and why the natural way works better. But what you did was you realized how smart she is and you realized how well she can do this stuff. So you can definitely use these recommendations. Thank you so much for joining. This is how Q&A works, everybody. I know that the information is massive and you're worried about something your child's doing or something your child's not doing, and you want that to change. So that's what we have to look at and how to go about that for you, right? Because every family is going to do it a little bit differently based on your experience. You may have had someone who said, you can't let your child have all their favorite things. You have to keep all those things locked up and you have to make them ask for everything. And then see, because you did, and then they did, you've got your whole vocabulary full of what's. See, and for the speech therapist, that looks like massive progress. Kid wasn't saying anything. Now kid is saying a bunch of words. But you see by the questions that you offered exactly how, my video's doing crazy stuff because my hands. Because you've seen, because in a functional situation, all those what's in the vocabulary don't get you very far. And this little girl wants to go places. She wants to engage with that crowd. So for a while here, she's going to get a little bit more quiet while you swap prompting, while you talk more and give more storytelling. And that's what's going to happen. All right, so let's keep going, because there is more to get through. And again, if you have questions, post them in. Let's see. Okay, moving on to the next one. I just made these slides long. Yeah, this is the video, folks. The storytelling facilitates new speech. It is a member-only video, but it is packed. All right, so let's get into the live questions from today's comments. I'm going to pull this back. and I got one from Aisha. So Aisha wrote this as I posted early, so I'm glad I posted early to get you to catch it when you saw the notice for the video. And she says her son is 5-year-old and he often pushes other children in his school and how to stop it. And so what's interesting about this, remember, first thing I'm going to say is all behavior is communication. So, and I want to share with you that this is also very common. So as we move forward, sorry, the next slide, there's a mom in my language facilitation group, Haley, who is a Q&A community member, and her son Charlie's doing the same. So Charlie's trying to play or interact with someone and will do that by hitting them. And in Aisha's case, her son is pushing them, right? And these are boys, which is different than girls. The girls tend to be a little, not all of them, some of them can be pretty aggressive physically, but I've had reports from preschool and now I've witnessed it with his new speech therapist. And this is what happened. I was more alarmed than her. So the reason I'm sharing this is because Haley had this happen with a really good facilitator in the room. And this is what happened when Haley let Charlie use his communication with someone who knows how to facilitate. Okay. She was scared. This kid started hitting people. She was alarmed. Okay. She'd never seen him do it with such passion behind it. Okay. So this was a lovely speech therapist. The situation that I chopped out of here was that they had been talking. So she came over to the house. She's going to work with Charlie at the house. They were spending their first session doing a lot of chit chat, talking about, how Charlie did and what his history. And this lady talked about her stuff and all of that business. And so what ended up happening was Charlie got impatient and he started hitting her. Okay. So then what happened was Haley got alarmed. She was more alarmed than the therapist. She'd never seen him do it with such passion. I asked him to stop and I got my mom voice out. You need to stop that. That's all those stops, right? But he was determined to keep it going. Okay. So what happened, what's really interesting about this, and I want you to think about this too, because remember, this is you responding or other people responding to your child hitting. And here's a facilitator responding to a child hitting. And she said, this therapist said, it's okay. It's not my first rodeo. And for the mom, Haley, not to worry. And what she said is, he's just trying to interact with me. And so Haley listened and relaxed a bit, knowing that she was okay, which I thought that this was a really important thing to share, because what happens is parents get so worried that other people are going to harshly judge their child. They're going to judge, especially with this behavior, right? They're going to think they're a bad kid. They're going to think they're a bad mom. It's the biggest triggering thing. Obviously, Aisha has the same situation. And at school, they don't like it. And maybe he's doing it at school and not at home. But see, we have to kind of listen to this experience about what happened with Charlie and Haley to look behind this hitting or pushing or whatever physical behavior. Some kids will grab other kids' faces or their clothing or things like that, or they'll touch like this a lot. And this is because late talkers who want to connect with other people. It's very similar to the one who's playing the verbal game with getting the names wrong on purpose or running down the driveway on purpose, right? Here is a child on purpose, physically connecting with a child because this child doesn't know how to effectively, verbally, using speech, connect with this child. Even the last one, Tiffany's little girl, she learned how to say hello because at some point that was demonstrated and modeled and potentially even reinforced or asked. Say hello to the child, say hello, say hello, say hello. You could have been doing some of that, but somehow that child learned that behavior because this is behavior training instead of communication response. You see, this speech therapist, Haley was trying to control that behavior. The no, don't, and stop are the first three that automatically come out of a person who does not understand that the child is communicating. They see it as a unconscious aggressive act that is intended to harm another child, and instinctively the mom, caregiver, teacher, professional brain will jump in between and protect that other child. Don't hit this child. We don't hit children. We keep our hands to ourselves. All that blah blah blah, right? Because they are responsible for that other kid as well as your child. So they're not going to let your child hit. They're not going to let them get up. They're not going to admit them to classrooms if they're hitting other kids. Okay. And that's why you're getting calls from the preschool saying, maybe we need them out. Right. All of that stuff. So the situation then with this aggressive behavior is you need to address this at home, because if it's only happening outside of the environment, that means your child's not ready for the environment. Okay. In one particular, if it's only happening at school, or it's only happening with new therapists, it's only happening when I have to wait. It's only happening when you have to look at the history of this behavior and find out what triggers it. Because in Haley's case, she could identify. He was bored. This lady was new. He didn't have a nice get to know you moment with her. There was a lot of chit chat about this and that and this and that and this and that, right? It can be very tempting to go talk about your history and your past and all that other stuff on your first visit with your speech therapist, but it's not going to be effective for your late talker. You see, you do all that business on the phone with this person. And when they show up to your house, it should be about establishing the relationship where they are your interventionist, whether they're a speech therapist, a certified practitioner, a developmental therapist, an OT, whoever comes to your house, right? On that first session, your child is expecting to know, how is this going to go? Why is this woman here, right? Not just what. This is a lady. Accept it. No, lady talkers don't do that. They will show up with results, communications that indicate you have not put them in the loop. You haven't kept them part of it. You haven't prepped them enough. You haven't planned together. You haven't taught them everything ahead that they need to be prepared for the expectations of this experience. If they need to wait, you have to prep them to wait. If they need to, stand in line, if they need to be in a crowd, if they need to listen to the teacher, if they need to, whatever, that's your job at home to prep that skill before you send the child. And if you invite that child in the home, the first session, your job is to facilitate that relationship, right? As a team, not take my child into another room, I'll fix you a snack and see you in a half hour. These are our issues. This is what Charlie's been thinking about today. I have planned for us to do this thing together. Let's go and do this thing together. And see, it only stops the hitting, how to stop it, the pushing, the hitting, the stuff. It only stops after you do this consistently for a period of time. And it depends on every kid, how old they are, how set they are in their ways, how controlling they are in the situation. And without that sort of assistance, they're going to take over. Information and assistance and guidance and structure, rules, negotiated contracts. You can have this if we do this, right? That's different than a prompted, bribed response. That's responsible, cooperative existence and participation in an experience where it's not just me doing for you or you doing for me. It's us doing together. Because I'm learning from this experience. I'm watching you. You're better at this than me. Whether it's talking, riding a bike, writing, whatever. Your demonstration and tricks and tips and how to make it easy are going to be what gets these kids away from hitting and into spoken language. Okay. And that's the only thing that's going to do it. All right. Let's see what I have over here. I just want to check. There are more questions coming in. So what do you think? Did this conversation cause you to have questions or spark on your natural facilitation journey? Let's see. All right. There are more questions coming in. So here's Krishna, who saw all that amazing progress storytelling. Thank you so much for being a member and also joining. Her son is 4 years old. She can hear a lot of words, even sentences, and see a lot of pretend play and imaginative play during one-on-one time, but very less communication in words and everyday functional language. Okay, so this is great. And a lot of parents will go ahead and remember, instead of try to be like a therapist and always on the fun end of things, like the performance, the clown, the I'm here to get you to do things, I'm here to be your playmate, I'm here to help you, I'm here to do things and be the entertainment. If it isn't fun, it isn't fun. Let's have fun with every minute of every day, right? I love it. That's great. That's what's got you so far. But in reality, that's what always gets things started. So we always start where it's fun, and then we have to carry it into functional, right? Because it's not functional, it's not realistic, it's not normal to be happy all the time. You can be happy every day, but that comes through acceptance, right? Acceptance of reality. If we don't have $1 million and we want $1 million, or we don't even have enough. Let's say we want to go on an airplane trip to India and we don't have enough money to do that, right? What we do is we accept that reality and we plan for the future. So now we're going to start saving our money, or we're going to plan for the future. We're going to, plan to raise it or get a job or somehow to get to that end, gratification, right? This is part of your situation. Everybody watching this video, you are not in the situation you want. Your child isn't performing the way you want, or the way the school wants, or the way anybody else says they should, right? That's why you're here telling me the things that they're doing or the things that they're not doing, right? And the reality is, the thing that's going to keep them functional is responsibility, right? Acceptance of reality and responsibility. Because, if you listen to Sadhguru, any of you guys from India, he talks a lot about this, how we don't make progress in our life unless we take responsibility for our resources, our existence, our communication, everything we have around us. It doesn't just happen. We can't expect life to come to us. And we don't want to raise children who are in that expectation either. Okay. So what all this comes down to is jobs. And so instead of just the things that are fun, like the storybooks and the play and all of that, you have to start doing jobs that are challenging, not just easy jobs like, push the button on the rice cooker, but where you have to use your strength. You have to use your problem solving. You have to use your coordination. You have to use your balance to solve these problems and rise to these challenges. Because in the process of moving outside of fun and comfort and everyday stuff into responsibility, you're there teaching your child how to tough up, try hard, overcome struggle, and deal with we can't always get what we want. Because without these components of your facilitation, you're just like a therapist, and you're going to get great interaction when you show up with the toys. And the other times when you come up with something that, less preferred or challenging or hard to do or got to do on your own, I'm not going to do it for you anymore. All of those business, you're really handing over that responsibility to a child. Some of them are going to be resistant. They don't want to take it. They want you to do it for them. They don't want to do whatever. And this is what's keeping you stuck. You don't want to fight with your kids. So you keep doing for them, or you keep bribing them, or you keep whatever, because it makes the life go easy, right? But then in the challenging times, when they push against you, you back off. And you don't dig into that communication behavior like we just talked about with those kids that are hitting and pushing, right? In fact, that's what makes kids hit and push, when they only know how to connect with you during fun. The little girl who makes mistakes is going to make a game out of, saying the wrong name just to get her mom to talk, right? Because that's the way she knows. Remember, these kids are not therapists. They don't know better. They need you to show them better. And that's why when you work with a therapist that says, aha, this child is impatient and he wants to play, he's tired of us talking all the time, you're going to get amazing eye contact. When you see, oh no, he wants to play with the other kids, and the other kids weren't able to understand him because he's a late talker. So he uses his hands to connect with those other kids. And you say that out loud in front of your kid with those other people while you explain the justification. And then when you're with your child, you talk about that experience. Remember when you didn't have the words to talk to those kids? This pretend play activity, we're going to play with that and talk about those words. Remember when you couldn't do it all by yourself? Now we're going to practice that skill and do it by yourself. Remember when you struggled through this thing? Now we're going to practice it and work on it, because we won't get better unless we practice and try hard. Are you ready to do it with me? I'm going to make it easy, and I'm going to support you. And at the end, we're going to do this challenge, which is more fun than any game, because we overcame the challenge. Woo! We did it, right? Dopamine flying all over the place, just like the fun game. Okay? Overcoming challenges. Don't limit what you expect your kids to do. The rules, the expectations of time, the patience, all of that stuff can be facilitated if you support it. But you cannot expect it on day 1 and day 2 and day 3 and day 4. If they fail on day 4, you can't quit. You got to get back in it and keep going. That's why you need a routine and a workbook to document everything that you're doing. Okay. So that's how you get it out of just play into functional responsibility. That's the key. All right, let's go. Here's another question. My son is going to be 5 next month. He was perfectly normal, whatever that means, for a child under 3 till 3. After exposure to screen, he quit speaking. And we're trying therapy, but still not getting any result. Could you please suggest any? So this is a case of virtual autism. Pretty clear case, right? So perfectly normal till 3, whatever normal means no concerns, right? Remember the reason that you're here watching this video, because you have questions. I don't know why my kid is doing this or not doing this, and other kids are doing or not doing, and mine doesn't. They're one of the others, right? And you don't want to be one of the others. You want to be one of the many kids who are doing. Okay. So I recommend for you to investigate my virtual autism resources. So virtual autism is real. It's very, very common. Most of you probably found my channel through that virtual autism video. It is my #1 watched video, and I published it 6 months ago. So the problem is only getting worse, and therapy can't solve this problem. You see, because remember, therapy expects kids to be ready to engage and connect. And virtual autism, as a result of that separation from engaging, listening, connecting to people, talking, not just people on the screen, not just Miss Rachel or Bluey or Blippy or any of those guys, but real people talking about when they fall down. Oh no, you fell down and skinned your knee. That must hurt. Ouchie, ouchie, let me wash it. Oh no, don't cry, let me hug you. Like that kind of talking. It happened amazing for this family. Before, when the child turned 3, the child started to get independent, right? By 3, they probably taught a bunch of stuff. The child was very independent and doing a bunch of things. And then they put a phone in the child's hand. An independent child who's used to doing things and getting whatever they want and need. By 3 years old, kids are communicating wants and needs, no problem, with single words or whatever. And then they put a phone in their hand and they get sucked down the same rabbit hole that we all do. We all do. Soon as you find a rabbit hole, you got introduced to TikTok, and now it's 5 years later and you spend 2 hours on it every day. Right? Or YouTube shorts or whatever you found. My channel, even whatever you found, you got in that rabbit hole and sucked down in there, and kids do too. And it's hard to get them out. But what it takes is real human contact. And you're going to have to do a lot more than just take that phone away. You have to reestablish. Now, the good thing about this family, when you look at this, was normal till 3, going to turn 5 next month. This child has exposure to a ton of language, knows a lot of language, but just has no functional use. They probably have a lot of the what's, because they've been getting what's in speech therapy. What's this? Give me the blue triangle, touch the thing, match the blue, whatever they've been doing for I don't know how long therapy they've been going on. They're not getting any result because they're not functional in therapy. They're doing the what's. And this is stuff your child already knows. But in therapy, they can't prove that your child knows it unless they can pull it out of them. And then when they pull it out of them, that's a prompted thing that they pull out. And that's good enough for the therapy, you see. It's good enough for the data. It's good enough for the insurance company. It's good enough for all that. Just your kid labeling stuff is plenty to drop the money. Because they didn't just say anything before, and now they're labeling 20 words. Woohoo! They're following 3-step directions. Woohoo! But at home, nothing. No functional speech because you're training games, right? You're training games. If you do this, you get the good job. Just like the wrong Bluey name. Your child was training you in the game because in speech therapy, they're trained to play the game. When you do this, you get the good job. If you don't do this, you get some other face or no, don't, or stop, which immediately makes you run out the door and disconnect with me. So I'm only going to give you fun stuff that you say yes to and then bribe you to get it done and then give you credit for doing it, and therapy's over. This is why kids with virtual autism do not do well in therapy. They need functional exposure. And how you do that is through everyday facilitation and even working with a certified professional. So you should definitely consider that. Save your speech therapy money, hire a nanny, get them trained to help you. In my program, it's there existing right there for you. It's $111. It's easy to get access. You just need this person to be a facilitator. Like Haley found, she's a speech therapist. Thank God she found one who's a facilitator, who can see beyond this stuff and isn't going to judge her kid and is going to help work it out and not judge on day one, classify kid, put them in the lowest level and start doing discrete trials. Do this, say this, give me the blue square business, right? Because that only happens when therapists make assumptions that children are lower than they are. Therapy doesn't work when therapists don't connect at the same level of the child. It just becomes a game to see who can get the most points, right? And it's the same game over and over and over again until the child gets more points, and then you get more challenging skills to do. But then remember, they're just skills. It's not functional. Labeling 10 kitchen items or sorting out all the blue shapes or finding all the cows in the pile of animals or, all of that business is not functional. But then you take those farm animals and you make a farm or you put them in a bus and you say, we're going to the zoo and we're riding to the zoo. Why are we in the bus? Why are animals in the bus? Where are they going? What would happen if animals went in the bus? The driver's going to have to clean all the poop. These are the stories that are going to get your kid functional. But give me the blue triangle and label these 10 items and say all these words that begin with the letter R is not. And that's why therapy's failing. Okay. Next question comes from Sandy. Says, my son is 3 years old. Says a few words, but no sentences yet. Okay, he's getting sessions with a private speech therapist 3 weeks ago. I noticed he's been crying so bad after each session. Is it normal? Unfortunately, it's normal, but it's not good. So Sandy, 3 sessions. What's he doing in there? What are they doing in those sessions that's making your child cry? And I got to be honest, hand up. I admit I was one of those therapists once upon a time. I used to come home and brag. I made 2 kids cry today, right? Because I broke them. That's what I did. In order, remember, my data sheet, my expectation was to get this kid, pull those words out, okay? And I had tricks like crazy. I had guilt trips. I had bribes. I had restriction. I had a table with a cutout that I could put kids in a corner. I had all kinds of things. And this was years ago before I realized how it didn't work, when I really started working with families that wanted to do a job. But I remember until I realized it didn't work, I was in my ego about it. And I made a lot of kids cry. But it's not good. It's not permanent. It doesn't teach kids anything. It just makes the therapist feel good for the day that she got something done. And she has established her dominance and respect and whatever. She put her kid in fight and flight. So to establish dominance and control. And then that's how you break them. It's like the military, right? You break them down so that they can have control, and you tell them the rules, and then you teach them in a very scaffolding, structured way so that they start to perform on command, and then you're done. You've therapized them. Okay. When kids are crying, therapists are therapizing. So that's how you know you've chosen the wrong therapist. And maybe you didn't have a choice. Like you said, I think she said she's working through the private speech therapist. You chose this person based on their promises, right? If you have a therapist, here's a trick. If you have a therapist that tells you, I make kids doing things, I make kids do things, that's not your therapist. You don't want them to make anything. We want facilitators that motivate kids to take responsibility and try hard with new things that are functional for them, for their life. It could be play. Play is very functional. Storytelling, very functional. Pretend play, very functional, especially for a 5-year-old who has a million stories in their head of their own personal experiences. That's what that storytelling video is all about. It's not about Five Little Ducks. It's about telling the stories of your life in the good, the bad, and the ugly, the amazing and the frustrating is all a story of your life. Ooh, I'm zoning out here. All right. Kumda's back again. I started using your book 11 months. I followed the schedules in the book, and now his social anxiety decreased. In therapy, he's doing everything instructed, but all without a sound and word. Okay, so this is really interesting. And Kum says your other book, if it isn't fun, it isn't fun, is helping. Okay, so that's the point. That's literally all it is. If it isn't fun, it isn't fun. What happens when children, look at this, when children go to therapy and they are compliant, okay? Anxiety decreased, meaning what happened to this little guy was he learned what to expect, okay? He learned what to expect. He said, they're going to keep bringing me here. They're just, I can't get out of it. Maybe he was crying at the beginning and you just kept taking him. And the therapist said, yeah, a lot of kids cry. It's okay. He'll get used to it. And that's what happened, is he got used to it. They never changed. Things are predictable. They realized just how far they could push him to keep him out of fight and flight, right? But again, what they are asking him to do is not functional. It is basically skills, performance. And your kiddo learned, because probably what they're asking him to do is not too challenging, but he wasn't doing it because he was so anxious. And now he's not anxious simply because he knows what to expect. It's like going to a bad job, right? You still get up and go every day because if you don't go, you won't get your paycheck. Or in this case, literally, mom drops you there. Okay, or invites this person in and says, spend time. You're in it. This kid's in it. It's the kid's job. Okay. So that's what I recommend when we're talking about kids that are not responding in therapy. And if they are responding to you in your pretend play, number one, look at what's going on in those sessions. It might not be bad, you know what I mean? But it could be very simple, could be very basic. And they're just doing the same kind of thing because remember, if it hasn't evolved beyond what they first addressed, that means your child's just compliant and they show up. It's like a factory work job. Once I learn how to do it, I don't put any super effort into getting better at it. I know what's expected, me to sit, me to talk, me to sort, me to do, because that's all the therapist wants. Child did the things I asked them to. Check. Progress. Documented. Child did it. I asked, child did it. Progress. Right. And just because the child's not talking, they're like, yeah, it's okay. Talking will come later. First, we have all the nonverbal things that we ask these kids to do because they don't believe, someone didn't believe that your child was capable of talking. And if your child is speaking more at home than they are anywhere else, what is different about your experience at home? And from your child's perspective, not yours, because you can say, well, it's all the same people, it's all the same things. It's not the same because the behavior is different. So you have to see from the child's perspective what's different between the places they do perform and the places they don't perform. And that's up to you as the main facilitator to identify and eliminate if it's toxic or facilitate through if it's necessary. Because remember, these kids that are hitting and pushing in school, they're going to get kicked out if you don't facilitate speech to replace that behavior. And the only way to facilitate speech to replace that behavior is to understand the meaning behind it and the triggers that cause it, and not eliminate them from the child's life, but teach the child how to work through those triggers and environments, because they're not going away. The school is going to be the same. Crowds, noisy kids, people who expect you to do things, people who have bad days and yell at kids. There are a lot of people working in places that teach kids that don't like children. My daughter's kindergarten teacher was one of them. Kindergarten, most important, school introduction situation. And she spent half the day with her head down on her desk because her teacher didn't like teaching. She wanted compliant, structured kids that didn't peep up or do things. And that could be what has been facilitated by this therapist into your child, just so they can write data, because they don't care if your child's talking or not. They just care if they're performing on command. Okay. So if it isn't fun, it isn't fun is true. And that's not just true for the child. It has to be true for the therapist, because that therapist who's doing the same old boring stuff and making your kid do it, it's not fun. They're not seeing your child's best communication. They're not seeing your child's love and connection and smarts and tricks and all that stuff, like this little girl who's saying the wrong Bluey name. These therapists don't get to see any of that because their environments are so highly structured that they get the blue triangle or not. And that's what they document. And that's what they remember, because remember, they're overwhelmed and they're seeing piles and piles of kids every day. And yours is just one more on the list that they can get to perform or not. And because you've been facilitating the importance of connection and listening and respect for this person, now you've got a compliant, silent child who is miserable in a job they hate. Okay? Don't be afraid to quit therapies if your child is crying, if your child doesn't like it, and if it's not making functional progress. With natural facilitation, swapping the prompting challenge alone, people see progress in days. There is no reason for any professional to go weeks or months with zero. It's the same experience for your child every day. It is a waste of your time. It is a waste of your money. And it's a waste of your child's development. All that time you could be spent working with someone who's trained to facilitate, and your kid could be talking in weeks or months instead of this same old stuff. That's how impactful that therapy is. Stuff that's not fun. Okay. So Andy wants to know, how can we get a one-on-one consultation? I'm glad you asked. Because that's exactly what I have going on. So I'm glad you found just found the virtual autism video yesterday, which means there's lots and lots of new people joining the platform. And I just want to welcome you all here. This Q&A is just a taste of the kind of help that I provide for families. I really dig into families' individual, unique situations, your history, your experience, your child's experience, your child's development so far, and what kinds of things you can do to facilitate moving from where we are, point A, into beyond the language, because this job never quits. It's never over. As long as your child's alive, they're going to be learning new speech and language and social skills and getting better and more refined at the ones that they do know. And that's your job as a facilitator, parent, and caregiver. And it's a lot easier than you think when you take a functional approach, F-U-N, functional approach. Okay? So let's see what I've got here for you. Remember, how you feeling? What do you think? You can comment now. Again, got a few more minutes before I pop off of here. Remember, answers to most questions can be found anytime in my videos, and the best results always come when you create a plan and document your progress every day. And that happens in the workbook and all that stuff. Now, here on the website, this is the YouTube channel first. The trick here is to find the video you need. And the great thing about YouTube and Google is that you can use all kinds of lovely keywords, whatever you want. So this one, I just use stimming because maybe your child is stimming. You could type it right there in the search part and find videos about stimming. And otherwise, you go to the playlist. So this is one playlist that has 26 videos, and it only has 107 views, which means a lot of people have not seen these videos. There's thousands of videos on that one virtual autism video, but nobody's watching the strategies videos. This whole everyday speech facilitation is full of dozens of videos, and each one of my lists, okay? And there are dozens of lists. So you can go and find the videos you want. And if you want, again, to contact me, parents are learning from me and each other in our Q&A community. And the most dedicated parents are helping each other. They're helping their kids catch up faster than just okay. So let's do, hang on a second. Let's do this. I just want, there's a couple more questions came in. So it can't pop off yet. I dedicated to Q&A and I want to know. So here's what Krishna says. Oh yeah, so this is a really nice testimonial. Check this out, folks. So listen, you can be like Krishna with no knowledge in all of these areas. She's been following my videos for the past 7 months, and you are really educating us. You really made parents the best therapists. Thank you for everything. And that's the truth, you see. Parents are the best. Parents are the best. I have been in this profession for 33 years, okay, after school. And then there was 5 years of school before that. So I have been in this forever. I have seen the systems change. When I was graduating, it was all about old people having heart attacks because that's what was going on back in the 80s and 90s. And then after all this heart health happened, fewer people did that and more people shifted into autism. And that's what's happened to the system. It's fueling clinics. It's funding clinics. It's funding people. It's funding, yeah, everything except for helping kids make improvements. Okay. So you can learn to do this. Parents are the best. And it took me a lot of years to figure it out, but I don't want that to happen to you. I don't want you to keep going to therapists that think it's their job to pull words out of your kid because you asked them to. You said, fix my kid, pull words out of them, make them talk. None of that works. It's magic stuff, dreams. You can't program a child like a computer. They're human beings. Okay. Here's what Mad says. Hi, Marci. My 5-year-old son is nonverbal and struggles to produce sounds like ba, pa, to blow air out of his mouth to say, oh, my goodness. This is why he's nonverbal, because you've been spending your time doing this. I've been told he may be having apraxia of speech. There are quite a few behavior issues too. Does speech therapy and OT go along with play-based activities some help? Wow, Mads. The problem here is this is a 5-year-old child and there is no functional anything in I, B, D, U. The fact that your child can't or is unable to struggles to produce these things. He struggles to produce them on command in therapy when someone's pressurizing him for no reason that's functional in his life, right? Because somebody somewhere read somewhere in a book or article that when you make kids say ah, ooh, ee, if they're nonverbal, we teach them to make sounds first. And then we turn those sounds into words. And then we turn those words into sentences. And then we turn those sentences into conversation. And we build speech that way, sound by sound. Think about how long it would take to learn a language when you have to learn it from the sound level. But, right? They teach letter sounds to teach kids to read very quickly into sounding out words, right? How long do they say B is B, P is P, D is D, L is L? How long do they do that? 5 years of learning language? No way. When people are babies, they go, ooh, 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 ma, 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 ma. When they're babies, below 6 months old, right? And they don't keep doing that. Why not? Why don't people keep making goo goo gaga noises with their kids after 6 months old? Because it doesn't teach them anything. And these kids are in life. They're real kids in life. They're not sitting on a shelf in between sessions. They're living life. They're listening to people. They're talking to people. They're doing stuff. And if you think this is what happens when you deliver a child to a therapist to fix them, and you rely on them for months and months and months to say, he's not doing this, he must have this apraxia, he must have this. If he's not doing it on command, that means that she doesn't have an fMRI study. She can't see that there's brain damage in your child. And of course, he has behaviors because he's nonverbal at 5 years old and he has to go every time, how many times, to this place where they're touching his face and making him do ooh. And they're not talking to him about 5-year-old things that are functional for a 5-year-old. This is why your child is not talking. Okay. You can't even diagnose apraxia based on these kinds of feedback, right? That's not how apraxia diagnosis works. When a therapist can't pull those words out, remember, that's their job. When they can't pull words out, they automatically put the problem onto the child because they're the expert, you see, especially these ones that do these sound-based things. Apraxia business, prompt and oral motor things, and PECS is the other one. No need for any of these things, right? No need for any of these things, all right? And the reality is, if your child had a real apraxia, he would have had trouble years ago. He's 5. You would have had trouble with feeding. You would have had trouble with hand holding forks and eating food and doing all these things, right? But remember, parents who get worried because they Google symptoms or they see their kid is late and they think they are not capable. They don't know that they're the best therapist. That's why some people finding. So Matt says, I'm new to your channel. I wish I'd landed here sooner. There's a lot to catch up on here. And thank you for all the information, especially this Q&A. Thanks for joining, Mads. I'm really, really glad that you're here. And I'm glad that all of you are here. This has been one of my biggest watched lives. And it's not because I'm sharing all this information. It's because I'm talking to you about what you're thinking about. I know this is the whole reason waves of communication exists, because I spent decades listening to parents talk about their kids late talking. And that was way before we ever had a pandemic and way before we ever had mobile phones in kids' hands below a year old. Okay. And then these kids show up at 2 or 3. Now, ear infections was previously the #1 cause, but this virtual autism has taken over. But don't neglect, just because your child has a lot of video time in their history, because all kids do, right? Just because they've had a lot of video doesn't mean that they don't have another underlying cause for late talking. And this is really important, okay? There is developmental language disorder, which is 1 in 14 kids suffer from this silent language disorder. It is the OG late talking in kids, and 1 in 14 suffers from that. And those kids, on top of being language delayed, get these video exposure, and their visual learning goes up the sky, and their auditory learning goes right. And they're bad listeners. They're bad listeners. Kids with DD and virtual autism are bad listeners. Kids with ear infections are bad listeners. Bad listeners can't learn speech, right? And you can't make a bad listener start talking by making them say ooh and e and ooh. It's not, language doesn't work that way. Language doesn't work that way. You have to facilitate the listening, the focusing, the eye contact, the attention. And it's not pulled out. It's facilitated naturally by reach and teach and do all that. So if you are watching this video for the first time, like if you're brand new to the channel and maybe you just saw that virtual autism video and you haven't seen anything else, you definitely need to sign up for my newsletter and get my free Get Started guide. You definitely need to do it. So let's take a look at that information. So remember, the most dedicated parents, the ones that are doing it, the people that you see on this video that have come back because they've been working for months and months with the workbook and they're seeing real progress in their kids. They just need to get them on the other side. These are folks that have been listening, have been watching, have been getting my newsletter every week. I put it out. It's massive, full of information just like this to address the issues that you need with real strategies that you can use. And it's all free. And if you click this green button, wavesofcommunication.com, click this green button right here, and you can access the free Get Started guide with access to the Swapping the Prompting Challenge video, which helps every parent see improvement in days. Every parent who does that challenge, okay? So that's it. I don't have any more questions coming in, and this has been longer than an hour. So if you're still watching, thank you so much. Please subscribe to my channel. Please like this video. Find 5 or 6 more to watch tonight and go down that rabbit hole and see how powerful you can be. That's the whole point. If it isn't fun, it isn't fun comes because parents are the most powerful. And that's what I want to show you. I want to prove to you that you are the most powerful facilitator for your child. Holes barred, doesn't matter how much experience, even I, with 30 years of experience, couldn't do it better than you. And I want you to remember that. Every time some therapist in their ego says, I'm an expert and I get kids to X, right? That's just tricks and tips and smokes and mirrors, folks. The best facilitators are always mom and dad and grandmas and grandpas and aunties and uncles and the people that are around in a child's life who love them, right? And I'm here to equip and empower you. So subscribe to the newsletter, subscribe to my channel, get started today, and then keep watching. Every Thursday, I'm here, guys, live. Every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern, you can come here and watch me live, talk about more stuff, talk about the new things that I have going on. And my next big push is I'm going to try to reach some of these therapists, right? And get them certified in facilitation so they can show up for Haley like Haley's therapist did and not show up like these other parents that make your kids cry or make them touch their face and make them do goofy stuff to try to pull words out. Okay. You guys need better people to work with you. Doesn't happen alone. So if you don't have a great therapist, look into the certification, hire someone to help you, or train your sister, train your auntie, train your maid, train your cousin, train somebody like that in your family to be your team member to work with you and your child, to get them socialized, school ready, all that stuff so that you can deliver them to school so they can show up and be ready to go. Okay. You might have to delay. You might have to delay school year. You might have to homeschool a year. You might have to take that break to get them going. The school's breaking down anyway. They can't handle all the late talking kids they got. If you have the resources to do this outside of that whole public school or even whatever school, regular education schools that don't have special ed involved and all these other things and these programs and stuff, if you don't have the wherewithal to work within that system, keep your kid out. Hire someone to help you if you have the resources. And if you don't have the means to keep them out of school because you literally use it for daycare because you're helping your family, you're working and you're doing all this, or you're a single parent, and you've got to earn money for your family and you've got to send them to these schools, right? That means that in your house, you've got to have something to supplement it. Just keep them out of programs that are behavior based. You want language-based programs, not behavior-based programs. And again, if your child is either aggressive, pushing, shoving, or resistant, isolated, and not playing, they will be isolated. They will be segregated and put as the others, because the children who are kept in the main classrooms are showing up for school, ready to talk to the teacher, ready to try their stuff, work hard, do their best, come back the next day and do it again without crying, without needing help, without all that stuff. Okay? And if your child truly does have autism spectrum disorder or real specific sensory needs or things like that, the facilitator therapist will help you work with your child's needs and accommodations to get them included into a school appropriately. Okay? Those of you watching with virtual autism and all that business, that's not going to help you get there. Okay. People are dropping off. It's time to go for now. Thanks again for joining me. You guys are the best. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.